So today I'm pleased to welcome 4 employers, Montana employers. I'll briefly introduce them and then we'll dive into the questions, and then hopefully you'll have a chance to ask some questions at the end as well. So first on Zoom with us is Keith Edma from Applied Materials in Kalispell. He's a process engineering manager. Unfortunately, Brian Eggerter was unable to come because of car trouble. So he's graciously agreed to join us today. Keith, say hello.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Excellent. Thank you. So we can hear him just fine, and we'll hear more from him in a minute. Sam Davis is here. He's the Vice President of Finance for Bridger Aerospace. Raise your hand, Sam. And Owen Samuels, the VP of Engineering for Onyx. And Lindsay Hanna, Senior Software Engineer at Workiva. So let's dive in. First, for our panelists, tell us your career story. So tell us about yourself, where you're from, your education, and your own career path up to now. And if you would please pass the mic, that'll help everybody in the back to hear you. Why don't we start on the end with Owen and work our way down.
This is on.
It should be on.
Yeah, it's on. Okay. So my name is Owen Samuels. I was born and raised in Wisconsin. I went to school, college in Brunswick, Maine, a small school called Bozeman College. About 1,200 students, liberal arts school, majored in computer science. It was a bachelor's of arts in computer science. So it was very more about theory of computer science, more about algorithms and data structures, but not very much coding. After I left college, I moved around a ton, worked for a bunch of different companies as a programmer. And then I moved to Austin, Texas, like 16 years ago, and started to do startups. There I was very much just individual contributor of software engineering. We worked on mostly mobile apps or websites that were B2C, business to customers. I eventually got into, the role that I got into, just actually lucky. To be honest, like I wasn't looking to get into management. I always wanted to just do engineering. And one of the companies that I was at needed a temporary VP of engineering. They asked me to do it, and I never looked back. So just a little bit about me.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Hanna. I grew up in Alaska and then moved here for school in 2007 and have yet to leave, so that's cool. I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science, arts, in, I didn't even know like most places offered an arts school, in 2012, and during school interned at then Right Now Technologies as well as SRI International in Helena. I started at Workiva in the fall of 2012 and have been there ever since. I co-founded the Women in Tech group at Workiva as well as founded the Women Tech Makers chapter here in Bozeman.
Thanks for having us out here today. Appreciate it. My name is Sam Davis. I'm the VP of Finance at Bridger Aerospace. My background was in accounting finance. I had a double major in both from Boise State University, and then went on to get an MBA from San Jose State University. When I lived in the Bay Area, I went through a lot of different types of companies, startups, small reporting company, publicly traded, and exposed to all sorts of different industries, from medical devices to cloud monitoring software, to now aviation, which is completely new for me, but an exciting opportunity, something I didn't think I'd find in Bozeman. Didn't really plan on it, but it was a great opportunity. So right now with Bridger Aerospace and new aerial firefighting, so a very unique kind of business opportunity, but accounting and finance is needed. It can be encountered anywhere, so it's worked out well.
And let's open it up to Keith.
Sure. My name is Keith Edma. I grew up in Manhattan, Montana, not too far away from you guys. I graduated from Montana State in '98, so probably when you were born or maybe even before. And I got a physics degree from Montana State. Right after that, I started with Micron Technology in Boise. I'm sure you're familiar with it, working in semiconductors. Pretty quickly, I got several different jobs as far as engineering goes. I actually worked for 4 years in Italy as a lead engineer over there. I worked in Virginia. I worked in Taiwan for a couple of years as well, and 18 years in Boise. And then in 2016, I came up here in Kalispell and started working for Applied Materials, which is a company that Micron worked with all the time. And have been up here ever since, and been down to MSU kind of every fall and every spring to recruit new engineers. So we're always looking for you guys.
Okay, and let's keep the focus on Keith for a minute when we jump into our next question, which is to tell us about your business. Give us a quick overview, how Applied got started, and maybe how it got started in its presence in Montana, what the company does, and any exciting plans that are underway right now.
Sure, no problem. So the business started 52 years ago in Southern California, kind of out of a garage, sort of it's exact same as Hewlett Packard. They found some materials making semiconductors. So semiconductors are in every one of your electronic devices, whether you're on a computer or an iPhone. Applied Materials makes equipment for those chips. And last quarter, we had $6.27 billion in revenue. So it is a very large company and headquartered in California. In 2010, they bought a company up here in Kalispell, and we do electroplating up here. So a lot of the chemical engineers and chemistry and physics guys are really familiar with that sort of setup. But we do offer, internships all over the world, a lot in California. There's a big base in Texas, also Massachusetts. And I guess exciting things is it just doesn't stop growing for us. Everybody with the Internet of Things is using more and more silicon, more memory, more computer chips. And so the business is looking really, really good and expanding, I guess, every year for the last 3 anyway. That's about it.
Thank you. Okay, let's continue in reverse order, back down the row.
So Bridger Aerospace was founded in 2014. Our boss is a former Navy SEAL. He's a very charismatic, energetic person. They bought a single aircraft. He loved the Bozeman area, moved here. They bought a single aircraft, I believe originally for doing surveillance work and counting cattle. And basically it turned into an opportunity where they realized the Forest Service needed air surveillance over wildland fires. And so they basically found a way to modify their aircraft and be employed by the government on fires. Just 3 guys in a garage in Belgrade. Kind of fast forwarding the timeline, they simultaneously started looking at sensors and on gimbals, looking at the different thermal imaging and the perimeters of fires as they were mapping them out. That spun off into a separate business that our founder started, Ascent Vision Technologies, which has had a big presence here. And we kind of worked alongside them as a sister company, used their gimbal technology on our aircraft, and then continued to buy more aircraft, expanded into water suppression. So we have the big water scooping aircraft now. They're a brand new, kind of our flagship, and we acquired 4 of those in the past 2 years. And we also added to our fleet drones that carry the same kind of payloads for aerial surveillance with those gimbals. And we're now branching into the technology sector, so we're building a fire-based web application for end users for notification services and integrating our aerial imagery into it. All that translates into a lot of really rapid growth. I joined the company in 2019 at, I think, 45 people. Now we're at 140 or some, and 20 aircraft from the one. And it's an exciting place to be, and Bozeman is central to, we call it home. We want to get as many people here as we can. And, it's kind of central to what we do. It really fits our business model. So, yeah, that's about it.
Before you pass the mic, do you want to introduce any other team members that are in the room? So if students would like to meet somebody
Again,
from
no correct me if
Bridger.
I'm wrong. So I have Jamie Bach right here. She's our HR manager. She's done most of the hiring for the company. It's all fallen in the past 2 years. And then we have our controller, Elise Byron, Montana State grad, and she runs our finance department. So yeah, both recent ads, but they've been dynamic and fast paced, helping us grow. So yeah, please come talk to me. I think on our team of 12, my direct reports, 6 of them are from Montana State, right? So yeah, always looking for new talent.
Excellent, thank you. Lindsay.
Let's see, Ben Web Finance got started in the SEC reporting space in 2009 and is headquartered in the thriving metropolis of Ames, Iowa. But fortunately, our CTO lives in Bozeman and was like, hey, what if we had a Montana office? And we're all forever grateful to Jeff Trum for starting a Montana office. We've since expanded also to Missoula and quite a number of locations across the globe. I think there's around 16 offices in the United States, plus a couple in Canada, and then we're also in the APAC and Euro regions, a lot of places that I do not know offhand. In around 2014 or 15 years kind of blurred together, we changed our name to Workiva and expanded into a lot more of the general financial reporting space. So not just SEC filings, but any type of internal or external reporting, auditing, whatever presentation, spreadsheet, document sort of situation that you want to be in. We also have a fair number of remote opportunities, like everywhere. We've expanded that in the past couple of years, which is pretty cool. Largely in Montana, we hire mostly R&D, but we do have a few people on customer service or other areas, as long as the job description doesn't require you to be on site, and those are pretty regularly available here as well.
That's great, thank you. I also want to give an additional credit to Jeff Trum. In addition to having the incredible foresight of planting his office in Montana, he also was one of the founding board members of my association, the Montana High Tech Business Alliance. So we appreciate his service and helping us get launched as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Onyx Mass, I don't know the exact date it started. I'm only a year into being at Onyx. But 10 or 12 years ago, it was started in Missoula. That's where we're headquartered. It was started out as a mapping company that we would put maps on the hardware chips that went into people's garments for outdoor enthusiasts. Maybe 7 years ago, 5-7 years ago, we moved to mobile apps. We have 3 mobile apps: a hunting mobile app, an off-road mobile app, and backcountry mobile app. We'll also be looking into other verticals as we see fit in the future. Currently, we're hiring across the board: software engineering, product, marketing, GIS, finance, accounting. We've been growing quite at a pretty good clip over the last 2 years, at least from the engineering organization, which I'm running. We've doubled each year, which has made some challenges, but are super exciting challenges in terms of growth. I always say that, when you have challenges, those are good things. That means you're growing. So we have a lot of opportunity for not only associate hires right out of MSU, but also internships. Josh Spitzer, CFO, CAO is here, so you can also talk to him when this bill.
Josh is a current board member of the Montana High Tech Business Alliance, just joined us in 2022, so we're grateful to him for coming on the board. Well, maybe let's dig in a little bit. Many of you have already mentioned or briefly some of the career opportunities and internships that you have, but maybe dig a little deeper. Tell us more about the roles that your company typically hires, especially, entry level opportunities or for grad students that might be interested in positions, and any advice that you would have for job seekers that are interested in a role at your company. And I'll throw this one open so you can answer in whatever order you would like. Grab the mic.
We have quite a bit of, as everybody faces probably in the Gallatin Valley right now, there's a big growth problem, which is a good problem to have, but hard to solve. We have aviation roles. I think we have a lot of pilots who are really excited by our aircraft. So if you're a pilot, great, please apply. A lot to contend with. We have a lot of mechanic positions constantly open just because aviation stuff. The Gallatin Valley is a tough area to relocate people to. And then specifically what we do in fighting fire is a pretty demanding job. So we have always open jobs out there. I think for younger folks or interns or whatever, we have growing opportunities there, especially in the avionics section. It's a very unique role. And we're partnering with Gallatin College to help kind of build that pipeline of students that can come in and work alongside of our mechanics and help host some of that training on site, because we understand it's kind of a long pull for us to get the right people in the door and invest in them. I think the opportunity there is to, the way I look at it for students is to get your foot in the door and find a place to be that at least gives you exposure to something that you might not know about. And I was surprised coming into aviation that the good money that, these aviation mechanics and pilots and avionics techs can make, that I didn't know was out there as a trade. And that it's a very employee-friendly environment for folks. On the technology side, as we're building this app, we have need for GIS interns and analysts, and as well, we're kind of going to probably start going into the app development side of things as well. That's going to be launched this year, so it's hard to tell how fast we're going to get into that, but that's complementary to our business on the technology side. And then back office, we always have IT, finance, HR, things like that, where, always as the business grows and we support the operations, we always have positions like that as well.
Let's go in order. Let's see, as far as like the engineering stuff goes, we mostly hire software engineers that you can expect, but we also have engineers in test and quality assurance and customer success people and security people and IT people and staff ops people, and really any sort of thing that you ever might want to do near a computer, we probably have that. In addition, we also have a pretty robust user experience, I guess department is the right word, organization, team, whatever. And so if you're interested in the human-computer interaction side of things, there's also a lot of opportunities there as well. I will say I don't think we hire as many entry-level software engineers right now, just because the demand for seniors is so absurdly high. But we do have a great internship program, which has a really good opportunity for rolling over into full-time work at the end of it. So I would encourage anyone that's looking to apply for internships if you're still in school or if you've only very recently graduated. But if you haven't, don't be afraid to apply to literally anything that looks like it might be a fit, because if nothing else, it's great interview practice. And at worst, it'll be the same place you left off, but a little bit better interviewing, and at best, you'll have a brand new job, which is very exciting for everybody.
Just add to what Lindsay said, Onyx is hiring pretty much all the same positions as Workiva. I think some of the places that we're also hiring is in data engineering and data science. You can imagine the amount of data that our apps have that we need big data experience. So we're hiring there as well. Also, we're hiring a lot in the reporting and analytics side of things. In terms of software engineers, we do look for associate people coming in. The things that we look for the most for people coming in are really knowing the foundational skills. So that's data structures and algorithms, and not so much like knowing the language. language, like we feel like anyone can really learn a language, that shouldn't be that difficult. It's really the foundational things that make you a really good software engineer. So those are the things I would focus on coming into either interviewing for an internship or an entry-level software engineer.
Thank you. And Keith, for
Sure.
materials.
Yeah, so applied materials, career opportunities are, pretty much across the board. Again, we do hire a lot of engineers, so physics, chemistry, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical, fluids, software, all of those are up here in Kalispell. We also, have a bunch of business opportunities in supply chain, logistics, project management, and product marketing. And then, of course, we're trying to hire another 90 manufacturing folks up here this year. And so, manufacturing, assembly, technical support, things like that. So a lot of opportunities up here. Internships, there's 12 opportunities in Kalispell and 160 some in greater applied materials. So you might work in California or Texas or Oregon or Boise or Massachusetts. But so a lot of interns over the summer in kind of a variety of different roles. Of course, myself, I focus on the engineers and in particular the process engineers. So typically I'm personally looking for material science, chemistry, physics, chemies, those sort of guys. And yeah, I guess we're looking for a number of new college grads this summer. And, kind of similar advice given is, what we're looking for are curious, confident, and have dealt with problems before. So, don't be afraid to put some, waiter, waitresses sort of stuff on your resume. Everyone's done a senior project, so that's not overly interesting. Some of the experiences that you've had, growing up or, interacting with other people are more interesting to me, what you can deal with. So don't be afraid to put some of those normal jobs on your resume.
Next question is about remote work. So much has changed in the last few years, including how many of these students have been attending school. But does your company offer remote opportunities? And if so, what does that look like? Again,
I'll start real quick. So, okay. So remote work, as you can tell, probably I'm at home right now. And so as a manager, I'm pretty much 50-50 here and at the site. It kind of depends on your role. So software engineers, most of them are at home. Electrical, mechanical engineers, most of them are at home designing on CAD and things like that. But, when they design and make a tool, they have to come in and test it. So, probably 20-25% of their time is spent on site. A bunch of my process engineers are, hands-on in the lab. 4 out of 5 days, they're actually at work. So it kind of depends on your job role and how much, hands-on sort of activities you actually have to do, whether it's, when you're at home, you can write a report on a computer or have a Zoom meeting or those sort of things. But, there's a number of things that you just have to do with your hands and go into work. So, HR, even though it sounds human resources is mostly online, software engineering is mostly online. Most of our financial stuff and purchasing and things like that all work from home at this point.
So Onyx Mass is, we're remote first. We have, like I said, offices in Bozeman and Missoula. I would say, at least in the engineering department, we're about 50-50. 50% in Montana, 50% outside of Montana. Most of our engineers work, if they're in Montana, they'll either be in the office or they'll work 2 days at home and 3 days in the office. We're really flexible with those things. What we really are trying to look for is when we hire is we want to hire Montana first. And if we can't find Montana, we go out to what we call our hubs. So we have 4 or 5 hubs throughout the US, which is places where we have 8 or more employees. So I think off the top of my head, it's Denver, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Portland area, and Salt Lake City, and Denver. And so we look there, and then if we can't find there, then we look in other areas of the United States. It's been pretty, in terms of software engineers, we've had a lot of luck finding people in Montana, but also have had to go outside of Montana to find good talent coming into the company. But overall, remote across the company is something that we are not shying away from. We just feel like you can get more talent and more diversity the way going throughout the United States.
Workiva has always had remote opportunities, although I will say, as well as the ability to work from home for most roles, although I will say there are a lot more people doing that now than there were 2 years ago, me included. We definitely like to have people in our offices, but we have become substantially more, kind of, I guess, competent at working with distributed teams just within each individual team. For example, like my team, when at the start of COVID, I think it was probably 90% in the Bozeman office, and between people moving and team restructuring, it's now about 25% people in the Bozeman office. And so just the ability to kind of, find the people that are right for that project has really broadened the opportunities, not only for individual teams, but individual people at the company and people wanting to enter the company. I also think that, like everywhere, we've become a lot more forward about hiring remote roles. And so all of ours will now say if they're hybrid or the option to work remote or based in a specific office right on the job description. And so it's much more clear as to what the opportunity is there. And then I think 2020 was the first year we had a remote internship opportunity, because partially we had to, but also because, as you mentioned, it does really expand your opportunities for diversity there. And so now all of our internship options are pretty much all remote, as long as the hiring manager is okay with that. So the vast majority of teams will have interns from wherever, not necessarily wherever their team is based, which I think is great. And then we have really, I think, focused on flattening the sort of experience of being in an office versus being remote in the opportunities that you have and management that you're given, and just training people to better handle remote direct reports or remote managers, because both sides are hard, as well as making sure that everyone recognizes or understands that they have the opportunity to come in if they want to, but they don't have to if they work better at home.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the same at Bridger. I would say, like Keith and Owen and Lindsay all said, with COVID, we've explored, different remote positions, because we started Montana first to hire and then kind of branch out from there. It's been difficult to fill all the roles we need at the pace we need to, so we've kind of have a hybrid going, but like Keith said, it's very specific on the jobs as well. We do have aircraft that you can't work on remotely. So a lot of our mechanic positions are avionics techs, some of our mechanical engineers have to be in the office. But we've tried to work around with folks' schedules, that if you have work that you can do at home and you prefer to do so at that time, there's some of that flexibility there. A lot of our pilots live all over the country, and when they report for duty in the fire season, it's out to a fire base somewhere in California or Colorado or somewhere like that. So they're kind of an exception. Then for the administrative staff, we basically did the whole shutdown and work from home during COVID. And then we have a pretty exciting dynamic office. It's never a dull moment. So a lot of people prefer to come in and be a part of the excitement around the place. So and be close to what we're doing. So again, it's kind of a mix. It's a hybrid, and we're exploring it as we go. We got a lot of questions from folks who want to do a mix of their, work from home billings, and come into the office. So we're open to that as we grow and kind of figure this out. But we have gotten a lot more efficient in working as teams, with Zoom and so on.
Excellent, thank you. The last question I have before we open it up to the audience is about a priority for our tech industry as a whole. And that is recruiting more diverse candidates, women, racial minorities, veterans, and other types of diversity. Are there initiatives at your company or in the community that support diversity and inclusion? And if so, please tell us about them. We've already heard some mention, but would love to dig a little deeper on this topic. Who wants to start? Lindsay, do you want to start since you mentioned that previously? We'll start with you.
Hey, it's me again. Yeah, so Workiva has quite a number of programs that we started, especially over the past few years, to really amp up the level of diversity within the company. We have 7 active employee resource groups around women in tech, women in sales, LGBTQ, veterans, ethnic diversity in tech, forget one. Oh, and then remote work is one for connected nomads, as they call themselves, which started pre-COVID. We also have a couple of internal programs that are aimed at helping underrepresented groups sort of grow into their positions, be that women or racial minorities or what have you. And then as far as hiring, we've really expanded that in the past couple of years. Remote opportunities have really sort of enabled the ability to hire more diversely, but we've also looked into historically Black colleges and universities as well as Hispanic ones, and partnered with some groups that specialize in hiring women in sales or veterans or folks with disabilities and other sorts of things. Like that. And then like I said, our internship program has always been really robust, and it has some of our best numbers, especially as far as gender equity goes. And so the ability to ramp that up and hire outside of our typical colleges has really increased the diversity there. But even at MSU, like I think half of the interns that I personally managed from MSU have been female, and those are all CS students. And so we just have really, really great opportunities there in order to expand those more entry-level positions. And then there's been a very targeted effort to insert some more diversity in sort of the director plus levels as well. And we've had quite a few hires in the past, I would say 18 months to 2 years at those levels, which has been really exciting.
Sure. Onyx does a lot of the things that Lindsay just mentioned at the company. I think one of the things that I brought to the company, which I've done for the last 5 years, is our engineering organization volunteers in the community, and we're really looking to focus with high schoolers and middle schoolers that are really into STEM. Currently, we work with the Montana Science Center, and they have some programs like Girls Who Code, and some of the engineers volunteer there. We're looking for opportunities in Missoula to get involved there. I know last year, 2 years ago, we were in the Women That Code in Missoula. From a national standpoint, since we are remote first, we have started to partner with a national nonprofit called Code to College, which focuses on low-income, diverse high school and middle schoolers that are in the STEM programs. And you go and volunteer and they have a couple programs. One is an engineer can go and teach classes for 4 or 5 weeks that are specific to specific STEM roles like engineering or UX, UI, things like that. There's also things where the whole engineering organization will go and volunteer and help people with interviewing skills, resume building, things like that. So we've been really involved with that. And then on the flip side, the company, the nonprofit does internships for the high school students into different tech companies around the country. We haven't started that part yet, but I plan to do that next year.
Keith, you want to?
Yeah, sure. For us, diversity is very important. It's a little harder to do here in Montana than it is in California, generically, but on my team, For instance, I've got a guy from Hong Kong, a guy from China, a guy from Korea, a girl from Italy. I've got 7 guys and 4 women on my team. And so, you know, it's very important to me as a person that's traveled kind of worldwide, and that we deal with, you know, companies that are worldwide, to kind of have that diversity and that understanding of, you know, English as a second language. Really important sort of thing when we're dealing with people that don't necessarily speak English very well. And so, you know, those sort of cultural barriers and things like that, it's easier to understand if you're a minority at some point in your life. And so, you know, I kind of felt that when I lived in Taiwan and those sort of things. As well, human resources kind of has a, I guess, directive to present hiring managers with a diverse set of candidates. So, you know, it can't be just all, you know, one type of person. So they want to make sure that, you know, we're hiring the best person, but they want to make sure that we have the choice of many different people.
Yeah, we're pretty early in our stages of diversity, starting up as a very small company, 3 people in Montana. You are limited in what you have to exposure to. However, we've taken on a lot in the last few years of, you know, we started in Montana, but then expand out. So by default, we've been getting a lot more diversity. And I think we've got our women employees up to 17% or something like that. Yeah, so we're making strides there. By default, by the nature of what we do with aviation and firefighting, we recruit a lot of former military. That's just a natural progression for a lot of aviators and mechanics that come out of the military. That's been from day one a big just a directive, but also by default of what we do. And then, you know, we've been taking strides in some of our ESG initiatives where we made changes in our governance to have diversity there, where we've been partnering in the community. I know it's not diversity necessarily, but partnering in the community with Montana Firefighters Fund, which is for victims of firefighting, and been working with Bozeman youth empowerment and things like that, where we're trying to get, as we have been with, involved more in the community, so we have exposure, and we're by default bringing in folks that are of different backgrounds, walks of life, ethnicities, and things to bring to the table, because we've noticed as we've gone from just a single aircraft doing air surveillance to all sorts of initiatives, including technology, having that diversity has really helped us grow dynamically, and everybody that comes on board is empowered to look for opportunities, and I think it's brought us pretty far. So.
Awesome, thank you. So now we're going to open it up to the room. Beth is going to carry the mic, and if you want to ask a question of any of our companies here, now's your opportunity. And when you ask your question, this is your chance to introduce yourself as well, your name and what you do.
Okay, my name is Bob McMahon. I'm a junior mechanical engineering student. I'm a non-traditional student. This is my 2nd degree, and I'm a little older than most undergraduate students. So anyway, I have a question for all of you, but mostly applied materials, simply because the mechanical engineering side. For an undergraduate student looking to kind of add to their degree and become more hireable, do you value adding a minor or doing undergraduate research? Do you weight one of those more than the other, or do you just have any thoughts on either of those ideas?
Sure. For the most part, I weigh hands-on experience in kind of troubleshooting sort of activities a lot more than a minor. You get, I guess, work is a lot different than school in, you know, the timelines and the deliverables and the kind of work that needs to be done and the speed at which you need to learn. So that definitely hands-on experience is more valuable. So if you do a research and internship, that's more valuable to me than a minor.
Any other panelists have an opinion on, for your company, what type of experience they could add to a degree that would make them more appealing in your view? Okay, they say the same. So they agree with Keith. Other questions in the room? Okay, we have one back there.
My name is Fred Christensen. I'm a graduate student. And this is a general question for all the people on the board. How would you handle the hiring process differently if the applicant is coming in with a graduate degree instead of just an undergrad degree?
This is just my personal opinion, but I think when we hire for folks and look at their background, I see a graduate degree as kind of, and I have one, the academic side of where you want to go next. So not to oversimplify it, but I would look at it as, you know, what's the career progression for you when we do that interview. So if you're coming in for an entry level role, but potentially where you're looking to get that hands-on experience, that's part of the fit for that person. But then I would say from there, where could you see yourself developing within the company? And that's a question just as much for the person applying as it is for the employer, so that you can put that to use. And something I can think of would be on our GIS side where we have technicians that have backgrounds in imagery, and then there's potentially going to be some learning, machine learning that we can get into in future years. A graduate degree would be a good fit for something like that. Does that answer your question, Karen?
I have something that, sure. So something to add on that. So I hire basically all three, a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD. And of course, you'll start at a slightly different engineering level. And therefore, the expectations are a little bit harder for a PhD that I bring in than a bachelor's degree that I bring in. You know, I'm expecting you to come up to speed faster, you know, because I'm basically paying you more. You kind of start at the same basic level, but I'm expecting a PhD to progress a lot faster than a bachelor's degree in the first year.
Questions?
So I'm Alex, I'm a junior chemical engineer, and I guess this question would be for applied materials as well. Can you just walk through kind of like a day in the life or a general role that the process engineer would have, like kind of a job or an application that you would see? So yeah, I guess a day in the life.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, really quickly this is a pretty normal interview question, and so I'm pretty used to it, but our process engineers are kind of 50-50, 50% in the lab, 50% at their desk, either writing up reports, analyzing data, designing experiments. And so, you have to design it, go run it, measure it, come back, write a big report. And so, and go to meetings, deal with other engineers. So it's really kind of 50-50, whether you're sitting at your desk doing something on your computer or in the lab running an experiment and, kind of analyzing the results. So that's pretty much a day, a week, the whole time that you're a process engineer here. The nice thing about being a process engineer is you learn the business like fully, right? So from the hardware down to the wafers that your customers are giving to you, what they need, what they do. And so, kind of stepping out and becoming, VP or whatever is really easy for process engineers. 5 out of our 6 salesmen in the office here were former process engineers because our customers want to know hardware and process answers. They don't really care about sales. They want performance on their parts. So, that's, I guess after the first year, but, there's really easy for, our engineers to become, the president of our company was a former process engineer. So that's about it.
Thank you. Other questions from the room? Okay, one up here.
Hi, my name is Eric Johns. I'm a freshman here at Montana State in the Computer Science Department. So in my exploration of finding an internship or an activity for the summer, I've noticed that the desirability for freshmen amongst most companies is extremely low. So what would you recommend like a freshman student do that wants to increase their desirability further on, like later on when applying for internships and jobs?
That's a tough one. I know it can be really hard to find something before you're like a junior, like maybe a sophomore if you're super lucky. I think there's actually quite a lot of things you could do as a CS student that aren't as available in other engineering disciplines, which is convenient for us. But, you know, looking into the open source community is a really great option for that, especially if you can find something that you're like super jazzed about working on. You can also try to find some local, more volunteer things. There's pretty much always somebody that could use like their website updated or whatever, which I know is not always the most exciting thing to do, but it is still hands-on experience. And then at the end of the day, like honestly, really focusing on your school and your extracurriculars are one of the most important things because we look very strongly for people to have some of those more foundational things so that we can get them up and running in like actual cool work as soon as possible rather than teaching the nitty gritty of algorithms and whatnot. So I think that, there can be a predilection towards people thinking that they have to have a lot of extracurricular or extra coding experience and whatnot. And that it doesn't hurt, of course, but I didn't have any for any of my internships other than, eventually previous internships. And I think the goal really is to show that you're excited about something. And if you're excited about something specific in the field, that's even better. If you're not yet, that's cool. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I started doing it. So here we are. But I think the more you can sort of play in the different areas, whether it's for a specific company or a project or just your own thing that you're trying to do, that's really the best thing as far as kind of like making a difference on your resume for those opportunities later in your college career.
Other thing is, I think going and talking to companies at career fairs or doing interviews is really good, sort of getting an understanding of what they're looking for, but also getting to know the company, right? Let's say you're interested in Onyx Mass. Talking to them as a freshman, we know who you are, like we're tracking who we're talking to. So if you come back next year, it's great because it shows interest and it's something that we value, that people are interested in, not only Onyx but the outdoors. So I think it's just great experience just to get the contact and the relationship and just the touch points. So also think about those things as well.
Okay, so we probably have time for maybe one or two more questions. So raise your hand if you have a question. And while we have one over here, but I'm also gonna give a heads up to Jordan Komodo. Can I pick on you? And after this question, would you be willing to introduce yourself and talk about Zoot Enterprises? Because before we go into the networking session, I want to make sure that all the students know about you, what the company does, opportunities. And then if there are any other employers in the room that would like to also introduce themselves, you can go after Jordan, but let's have this final student question.
Guys, I'm Michael Buffington, junior in the CS program. I'm a non-traditional student. I left the workforce at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I have a lot of questions about your guys' experience working remote. I'm curious, what are qualities of a junior engineer or an intern starting their first job remote? And also, what do you guys do to support first-time employees working in a remote setting? Thank you.
And a learning opportunity for everybody. Prior to the pandemic, I lived 2 miles from the office and never worked from home. I never even took my computer home. And so when that pandemic hit, that was a bit of a whirlwind. And then we've since moved to Livingston. So now I literally never go into the office just because of the drive. I don't really like driving. I will say that like the first year was hard, like for a lot of people. And I think we've all learned a lot about how to manage not only ourselves, but our colleagues in different environments. As far as like first time remote people, I think the ability to ask questions when you are afraid or stuck is the biggest one, because we can't see that you're like head desking against your computer if you're not 2 feet away from us. I managed 2 interns remotely that first year, and I've never managed remotely before. And to me, that was the hardest thing. Like, I just couldn't physically see how they were doing. And yeah, you have a one-on-one once a week maybe, but it's pretty easy to fake a smile for 30 minutes. So if you're someone who can kind of get over that debilitating fear of asking questions in Slack channels and whatnot, that is going to be your biggest self-service. And the other things are really not that different from working in an office, but making sure that you can tell when you're stuck versus when you're just on the road to a solution. And granted, that takes a lot of time to figure out. I don't expect anyone to know that as an intern or an entry level person, or honestly, like the first 5 years that you're working, it takes a while. But the earlier you can learn that, I think the stronger your ability to really thrive in a remote environment rather than just survive it will be the biggest thing. And then we also, at least on my team, when we onboard a new person, we always have a number of learning sessions in their first couple of weeks that are led by different members of the team. So it'll be basic things for like, if they've never used Dart before, it's like introduction to Dart, the programming language, because again, like he said, we don't expect people to know any one language coming in, especially one that like, frankly, most other companies don't use. And there's also things like, relevant to our specific code base or our tech stack or like the company culture or just getting your computer set up. We will have them do that live with another full-time engineer or a group of interns or whatever the case may be, so that you're not just sitting in your room by yourself for your entire first couple of weeks. We try to make it as real life as possible, so you just have like some inkling of who your new teammates are. And then one of the things my team does as well is, if you're not familiar with the personal user manual, it's basically a presentation that you give the rest of your team as to like how you like to work, how you like to receive feedback, the best forms of communication, other things like that. My team did this early on in the pandemic, and it was like kind of a mind-blowing, amazing thing in any circumstance. But I think for remote people, it's especially important. And so we share all of those presentations, just like the slide deck, with every new person, and then actually have them give theirs to the rest of the team, so that we really have a good understanding of like not only who you are as a team member, but who you are as a person and how we can best support your journey into becoming part of our team.
And I'm going to pass the mic to Jordan over here. You can take this one. There you go. We want to hear about you.
Sure. Thanks. It's like getting invited up on stage to play with the band. That's awesome here. As Christina mentioned, my name is Jordan Kumoto. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Zoot Enterprises, which this isn't a trademark slogan of ours, but we've been around for 32 years. We're founded here in Bozeman and like to consider ourselves Bozeman's original tech company. Like I said, don't go running to the trademark office on that one necessarily, but we work in the software industry doing decision engine software and automation software for banks, financial institutions, retailers, and have started growing into the medical space as well. Basically, any type of company that needs to acquire data from a number of different sources, aggregate that together, and compare it against certain criteria that has been defined by the client to then create a decision.
And we do that, we build the software platform that does it, but also then host those solutions in our data centers that we have as well. So just like, all of these companies up here, right, we have entry-level positions that we are hiring for. They are on the technical side of the house, but we are very much open to folks with a variety of different backgrounds, right? It doesn't just have to be computer science or computer engineering for what we do. You will be working in a technical capacity, but we will provide you the training that you need to be able to do the job, to work with our clients, develop those solutions in the tools that we have that are designed to be easy to use. Very similar to, the challenges that you guys are having, right? I mean, whether it's entry level or experienced folks, come talk to us, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to a tech company, even if you never gave thought to working for a tech company or an engineering role or a manufacturing role, right? Attitude and aptitude, right? Do you have the ability, to learn, to want to learn? Do you have the skill set, that would set you up for success in really just about any environment? We want to talk to you. These guys want to come talk to you. So don't be afraid to talk with us. We'll have a number of folks here, largely wearing these sweaters here. So
Do you want to introduce them as they raise their
there's one right now, Chris Dull, who's an MSU computer science alum. He's our vice president of microservices. He actually has an open position on his team, so you can definitely talk with him. But some additional members of our technical staff and our HR team will be rolling in here in just a few minutes. But we're based out in the Four Corners area. Again, we've been founded here in Bozeman for 32 years now. About 300 employees. So, and we also have an office over in Billings as well. So for anyone who is in Billings or from Billings originally, maybe looking to go back there after school, we have a great, beautiful building over there. It's a LEED certified building that right now only has about 20 people in it, but hopefully we can grow the population over there over the next few years to maybe double that size. So.
Thank you, Jordan. We are down to our last minute, so with that, I will wrap up this session of our program. Thank you to all of our panelists, to Keith online, and to everyone who came here today. We're going to just stay in this room and network, so feel free to come up and talk to some of the companies if you have further questions, want to meet them, express your interest. I know I always remember the freshmen who come up and talk to me at the career fair. I don't know if he's here yet, but your ASMSU president, Mr. Blossom, are you in the room? Maybe he's coming later. I saw that he registered. I remember meeting him at the MSU career fair when he was a freshman a few years ago. And I was like, wow, freshmen showing up, they're going places. So the earlier that you start, the better. But hopefully you've learned some more today about some of the Montana companies that want to hire you. And we hope that you will think about the fact that you can stay in Montana and have an incredible career and do really exciting work. And you get to live this Montana life and you don't necessarily have to leave the state to do it. So thank you all for coming. And then we'll open it up now for the networking. So thank you all.